It began with a sound that didn't belong on that quiet suburban street. The deep rumble of Harley engines slicing through the afternoon air like thunder rolling across a calm sky. 4 bikers rode in, their black vests emblazoned with the fiery insignia of the Hells Angels, their shadows stretching long across the warm pavement. Neighbors peered from behind curtains. Mothers hurried their children inside. Even the wind seemed to hold its breath. Then, amid the rumble and steel, a smaller, softer voice rose, trembling, innocent, heartbreakingly desperate. "Sir, will you buy my bike?" The men slowed, engines growling low. At the edge of the sidewalk stood a little girl, no more than 6. Her light hair was messy, her dress too neat for how worn her shoes were. Beside her stood a pink bicycle with a white basket, and in her small hands a cardboard sign that read, "For sale." The smallest, or perhaps the kindest, biker shut off his engine and climbed off. The others followed, their heavy boots thudding on the pavement. He knelt before the child, the chrome of his bike gleaming behind her like a mirror to a cruel world. Her name was Mira, and in her eyes was something no child should ever know: exhaustion. Behind her, under a distant tree, an older woman sat slumped against the trunk, wrapped in a blanket, pale and thin. The biker's throat tightened as Mira spoke again, clutching her sign a little tighter. "Please, sir, Mommy hasn't eaten in 2 days. If you believe in kindness and second chances and standing up when the world turns away, please take a moment to like, comment, share, and subscribe to Truth Unfolded." Stories like this remind us that compassion can still change everything. The biker's name was Ryder. His brothers called him Wolf, though the nickname never truly fit. Beneath the tattoos and leather was a man who had lost more than most could imagine. A father who walked away, a son who never came home, and a faith in the world he thought was long gone. But that day, kneeling on the hot pavement, something inside him stirred again. He gently asked what she meant, and between trembling breaths and tiny tears, Mira told him everything. Her mother, Clara, had worked for a local catering company owned by the town's well-known businessman, Mr. Hensley, a man who smiled on magazine covers and donated to charity for the cameras. When the company downsized, Clara was among those fired. She begged Hensley to let her stay just a few more weeks so she could feed her daughter, but he didn't care. He told her she was replaceable. Since then, Clara had been too weak to find work. The bills piled up, the fridge emptied, and pride kept her from asking for help. So Mira decided to sell her only toy, her pink bicycle, for food. Something inside Ryder snapped, like the last thread holding back years of buried anger. His brothers, Tank, Viper, and Mason, had seen that look before. They nodded silently. It wasn't pity they felt. It was rage, the kind born from watching innocence crushed by greed. Ryder reached into his vest, pulled out his wallet, and placed a wad of bills into the little girl's trembling hand. "Keep the bike, kiddo," he murmured, voice low and rough with emotion. But this wasn't the end. Not for him. He couldn't just ride away knowing that powerful men had stripped everything from a woman and her child. He told Mira to stay with her mother, promising he'd return soon. Then the engines roared back to life. The Hells Angels weren't saints, but they had their own kind of justice. That day they didn't use guns or violence. They used truth. They found Hensley's office, a tall glass tower gleaming in the sunlight, a monument to arrogance. The 4 men entered like thunder after lightning, their boots echoing against marble floors. The receptionist froze. Through a glass wall, Ryder met Hensley's eyes, the eyes of a man with a gold watch, a fake smile, and hands that hadn't seen an honest day's work in years. "What is this?" Hensley scoffed as they entered. Ryder didn't shout. He simply placed Mira's "For Sale" sign on the pristine desk before him. "That," he said quietly, "is what your greed cost." For the first time, the polished businessman looked shaken. Ryder told him about the little girl, about the mother starving beneath a tree, about the bicycle worth more in love than all his luxury cars combined. Hensley tried to defend himself, mumbling about business and layoffs. But the excuses faded when he saw the fire in those men's eyes. Not criminal fury, but moral conviction. They didn't hurt him. They didn't need to. Ryder simply leaned closer and said, "You can't buy forgiveness, Ein, but you do get a chance to do what's right." By sunset, the town was buzzing with news. The CEO who'd fired a struggling mother had anonymously donated a year's worth of groceries to needy families, paid hospital bills for single parents, and rehired those he'd wronged. No one knew what changed his heart, except a few rough men and a little girl with a pink bike. When Ryder and his brothers returned to that tree that evening, Mira ran to them, eyes wide with joy. Her mother, Clara, stood now, weak but smiling for the first time in weeks. The fading light caught her face, and Ryder noticed how her hands trembled as she tried to thank him. He only nodded, tipping his head as the engines cooled beside them. "You don't owe us anything," he said. "Just promise you'll never give up." That night, they shared bread, the bikers, the woman, and the little girl who'd tried to sell her bike not for toys, but for love. The sunset painted gold across the chrome, the grass and the folded cardboard sign in Mira's lap. For a moment, the world didn't feel so broken anymore. If this story touched your heart, if it reminded you that compassion can appear in the most unexpected places, please take a moment to like, share, comment, and subscribe to Truth Unfolded. Every click helps stories of real kindness reach those who need hope the most. And before we end, tell us in the comments below, what would you have done if you were in Ryder's place? Because sometimes one act of courage is enough to make the whole world believe in kindness again.